I'm going to introduce our first speaker. He is Gary Sasse. He is one of the leaders of the glory day, or of the Rhode Island Republican Party from its glory days. He is an expert on economic development, and he has some very interesting things to say. So let's hear it up for Gary.
You know, before I start, I can remember when it was the Pawtucket Indians. Which microphone? Is this? Oh, is this better? Yeah. So I can remember when it was the Pawtucket Indians. When I was a youngster in Florida, I was scouted by the Indians. They said, you can go to Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And so I signed somewhere else, but that's besides the point. The other thing is I was really surprised.
Right down close to
Which one?
That's good.
Is this okay now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say before I started my remarks is that when Sam and Sharon asked me to speak, I was a little surprised because I probably come at the subject a little bit differently than some of you do. Because I think building a minor league ballpark in Providence or anywhere else, what matters is a couple of things. That it's properly designed, it's a good neighbor, the zoning is locally controlled, and it's consistent with what the neighbors and the city wants in terms of its economic development. What I think is a real problem is when taxpayers are asked to subsidize it. You know, as a free market conservative, you know, government has a role, and government's role is to make sure the playing field is level and a climate is created conducive to all business, and one type of business shouldn't be favored over another. And so when we're asked to make a subsidy, you know, we as taxpayers take all the risks and the owners make all the profits. And I don't think that's the way our system is supposed to work. And for every dollar that is used to subsidize a private business, whether it's a baseball park or any private business, that's one less dollar in your pocket for tax relief when you go down and pay your property taxes in Providence and Pawtucket and other cities. It's one less dollar for public education. It's one less dollar for public safety. And so there are choices. And it's very easy to spend other people's money, but there are choices. So the first point is that the owners of the stadium, if it's a good business deal, should be treated like any other business. In the case of a minor league baseball park, though, the risk to taxpayers are extremely risky. The economics and what economic analysis has been done is pretty consistent. There was a professor at Villanova University, and he found that there was absolutely no politically subsidized stadium that generated direct or indirect taxes to balance the initial taxpayer in investment. Brookings Institute, a liberal respected think tank, said any sports facility has to be extremely effective, and it can't be that effective to justify the return on the investment. There were some professors at the University of West Virginia, University of Maryland, who I think did the most creditable work, and they looked at 40 peer-reviewed studies on this subject over 2 decades, and their conclusion were unanimous, that it really wasn't, if the private sector wanted to take the risks and make the investment, fine, but it really wasn't much of a return to the public. So where do you stand? Where do we stand? And I think one thing that's pretty obvious is that the initial proposal was an extreme proposal. I think it was outrageous. Asking taxpayers to come up with $120 million over 30 years to pay for a minor league ballpark was just the start of the ask, and they wanted 30 years of not paying taxes. And I wish I live in East Greenwich. I wish I had 30 years of not paying taxes. I could adjust to that pretty good. And so expect that there will be other proposals coming. And I think the governor said that the state who wants to make a better deal on the ballpark. Well, I will tell you this, and I made a lot of deals. If you feel under pressure or you feel compelled to make a deal, you're going to make a bad deal. And so in closing, let me just say this. There are principles that we need to follow. There's process that we need to follow. It's really important in our democratic society that we're clear on process, that we're clear on principles, that something doesn't come out of this building the last minute. Number one, no taxpayer subsidy. Number two, if there's to be a tax stabilization agreement, we should deal with the owners of the Red Sox the same way we deal with any business that wants to come to the city of Providence. No better, no worse. Shouldn't discriminate. Number three, and this is something that concerns me a great deal with several projects, Providence is a city. It has a home rule charter. Zoning decisions should be made locally. Zoning decisions should not be forced down the throat of the mayor or the city council by politics in this building behind it. And the last point I would make, which is not uncommon elsewhere, if there's a stadium proposal, why not a public referendum? Let the people decide.